I want to welcome everyone to this very important discussion on Afghanistan, entitled Insights into Afghan Culture and Opportunity to Appreciate the Rich Cultural Heritage of Our New Afghan Neighbors. My name is Spence Limbacher. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Peru a long time ago in 1966-68, and I did training of volunteers in Sierra Leone in the 1970s. I will be the moderator for today's discussion. The program will last 90 minutes. We've extended the time to allow for questions and answers, 60 minutes of presentation, and then 30 minutes of questions and answers. This program has been organized by a team of individuals from the Peace Corps Community for Refugees, Friends of Afghanistan, the Afghanistan American Foundation, and the National Peace Corps Association. This program is being taped and will be available to others for anybody to view it at a later date on YouTube, and we'll let you know about that later. The agenda that this group has put together will have some opening remarks on why this issue is important today and what we're hoping to achieve during this webinar. So they'll set the stage. Each of the speakers will then have a 10-minute opportunity for a 10-minute presentation. This will then be followed by a question and answer period. For the questions and answers, please put your questions into the question link in the Zoom. You should have it up there. It says Q&A. If you have questions on any of the speakers, put your questions in and please direct them to or address them to a specific speaker. Dan will manage and organize the question box as we go through this, and he will gather up all the questions, and at the end we will I will direct it to him and he will ask the questions, and then people on the panel may respond. We have, and I just found out a few minutes ago, we have over 160 people registered for this webinar, which I think says a lot for the groups that are here making presentation, and for the interest that Peace Corps volunteers have for this very important issue. So we all know who is on the call. Please put your name and organization into the chat box. So down at the bottom where it says chat, or wherever it is on your screen where it says chat, please add your name and your organization so anybody who's on the call can look at that and know who else is on the call. And then, you know, probably most of you have done Zoom calls before. You can either direct comments back to individuals or to the whole group. I believe this is the end of the housekeeping items that I was supposed to attend to. Let me now move to our first presenters, Barbara and Tony, both from the Peace Corps Community for Refugees. And they'll set the stage for this discussion. And they have 10 minutes. So Barbara, are you going first?
Yes, I'm going first. Even though Tony is first in the alphabet, I'm going to be going first. And I just want to say that the two of us will be sharing our 10 minutes. Each of us gets 5 minutes. And I also want to say that Tony, much as we would like to claim him, is actually not with the Peace Corps Community for Refugees, but is the leader and guru of the Friends of Afghanistan. And it's been an honor to work with him and to meet him. I just want to give a quick welcome to everybody. As you've heard, we have over 160 people signed up for this webinar. As you know, there are, as Spence has enumerated, there are four organizations cooperating to put this on. One is the National Peace Corps Association itself. Then we have two of its affiliate groups, the Friends of Afghanistan and the Peace Corps Community for Refugees. We also have the honor of welcoming as a sponsor the Afghan American Foundation. And lastly, we also want to acknowledge the participation of one of the oldest and most historic of all the refugee support organizations, the International Refugee Committee. And I think I speak for all of our sponsors when I say we are so edified that so many of you have decided to join us. And I think that it reflects the profound gratitude that Americans feel to the Afghan people who are arriving here by the thousands for all they did for our countrymen in their country. And so we thank you for that, and we thank you for your participation in this webinar. We have two goals, not three, although it's a third goal activity in many ways. The first is that we want to get to know our neighbors a little bit about their history and culture, and maybe even what they like to eat, which is one of my favorite things, international foods. And our second goal is to learn how practically we can be good neighbors to these new arrivals. And with that, Mr. Moderator, I yield back my time to Mr. Agnello.
And Spence, I have to check with you. I have the baton now.
You have the baton. It's all yours, Tony.
All right. Well,
Take it away.
I want to start by thanking Barbara, thanking the Peace Corps community for refugees, thanking NPCA for facilitating this, and introduce my Friends of Afghanistan partners on the committee, Terry Doherty, Kevin McNamara, and Mark Luce. I'm also joined as a Peace Corps RPCV with the Buffalo group by Jenna Kuhn, who is our standard bearer for that Buffalo RPCV group. Barbara requested that I give some color commentary on what it was like to go to Afghanistan and live in a very different culture. And just because it would inform how much of a challenge many of our new arriving evacuees will face when they come here, because they are adjusting to a new and different culture. So I would say that maybe one of the most important things is that our arrival in Kabul felt like arriving in any South Asian large metropolis. But when we went out into provincial Afghanistan, it was in some ways like going back in time. I remember going to the covered bazaar in Tashqargan in the northern part of Afghanistan. And by the time I first arrived there, I was reasonably proficient in local Dari. And I was asked what my ethnic origin was. And I told my various European ethnicities, focusing on my half Italian heritage. And the gentleman that I was talking to said, "Oh, we had an Italian come through here a few years ago. I mean, a long time ago, actually." And I said, "Okay, well, I mean, how long ago?" And he said, "Zaman guzashta," I mean, way in the past. And I ferreted out from this that they were talking about Marco Polo's visit to this covered bazaar. So it was really, in many ways, like a time trip for me. So what I'd like to do now, seeing if my technical limitations are not exceeded by this task, is share with you a quick PowerPoint about the Friends of Afghanistan and some of the things that we've done in the past. And I can tell you from my point of view, one of the most important things that we've done is create a partnership with the Peace Corps community for refugees. All right, now I am again featuring my own limitations and attempting to, I've done it, featured the decades of Afghan activism that our organization has put forth since we returned in 1979 as the last Peace Corps group left Afghanistan. Friends of Afghanistan has been involved in school construction projects, and we've focused on making a difference. We have a project we call the Starfish Initiatives. We've sent tons of school supplies to, this is SOLA, the School of Leadership in Kabul, and to a number of rural districts. And we believe that if you can conceive it and believe it, you can achieve it. We gave 2 Starfish Awards this year to the Green Village School in Helmand that runs a midwifery program that I'm hoping will persist under Taliban rule, and the Awaken program that runs medical equity initiatives in Jalalabad. This is our very large COVID support program for them from last year. But one thing that Barbara and I have talked about a lot is that this opportunity lets the peace community of America join with America's warriors and its veterans. And we support No One Left Behind and a number of the other military organizations that are supporting the special immigration visa recipients. The LOL up there is not laughing out loud or lots of love. It's that these folks have left their life on the line. And that's the reason that we are doing what we're doing. We are trying to leave no one behind who is eligible for any of these evacuation programs. So I want to especially thank the Peace Corps community for refugees for helping Friends of Afghanistan gain some traction on something we've been working on for decades. And I am very grateful for this affiliation. Thanks a lot, Spence.
Sure. Tony, thank you. Those are excellent, beautiful slides. It really helped us get a feel for the people of Afghanistan. So thank you for your comments, and Barbara, thank you for your introduction. Our second speaker is Fresca Taib from the Afghan American Foundation. Fresca is a senior refugee interventionist and will speak on Afghan culture and culture competencies. So Fresca.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you for everything that Peace Corps, Friends of Afghanistan, and everybody affiliated with tonight's event is doing. It's as an Afghan American sitting back and watching this, it really helps raise our voice, and it really helps us feel supported and cared about. So thank you so much for doing that. And I think the more people feel cared, the better it will be in the future. These relationships are extremely important to nurture from the beginning, from the moment that our guests come into this country until they start to make lives of their own. So again, I applaud your efforts and I thank you. I was very impressed by your work in Afghanistan. And before I begin, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the work that I have been doing currently. Today will mark 30 days since the collapse of the Afghan government. 30 days ago, I was in a very different place. I did not look like this. I think maybe for the last 48 hours, I've been really making a strong effort to try to clean up and kind of just push forward. I can tell you that Afghan Americans across the diaspora are hurting, they're grieving, and they require a lot of support. So please do check up on your friends who are from this area of the world and make sure that they're doing okay. There's a lot of secondary trauma that is occurring. There's a lot of survivor's guilt that we are experiencing. So it is a very difficult time. A few different things that I'm working on before we start talking about competency. Tony made a perfect segue. We are working on a lot of advocacy with regards to the evacuees. We're also working on advocacy with regards to getting state funding for the different types of visa holders that have and those who do not have visas that have entered the United States. I don't like the word parolee, but that's what they're referred to. We're also working on some long-term resettlement plans. And I know that later on we'll be talking to Avi, which has been a tremendous help and support, and she will help to tie that part of it in. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not a tech person, but I'm going to attempt to go ahead and share my screen with you guys and try to get that screen up there that is required. I do not see it, so I will try again. Okay, so while I'm doing that, let's talk a little bit about Afghanistan. So why do I do this? It's really important to know and understand that the reason why I do this, although I was born and raised here, I am the daughter of an Afghan refugee who sought political asylum right after the Soviet invasion. My mom came here at the tender age of 18, and she was here on political asylum. So cultural competency is really something very important for me, and an experience that I've lived in my life personally. And I realize that this is the key to bridging the gap between providers and the population that they're serving, right? So any of us that are on this call, hopefully are either providers, volunteers, or beautiful people who just want to be able to help in some capacity. But before we can get to that stage, it's really important to know and understand, right, that we all need to be understood. This is my favorite phrase, right? I like to say we all need to be understood. And part of that is addressing people by the correct word. I know that there's a lot of misconceptions out there. People that are from Afghanistan are called Afghans. And a lot of the time, there's this big mistake that's made that Afghans are called Afghanis, right? And I wish that my slideshow would come up so that I could show you that there is a musical artist. His name is Kais Asar, and the album cover of his CD says, "I am Afghan. Afghani is currency." And he thought it was so, it's such a serious thing for us. An Afghan, out of respect, if you call them an Afghani, they will just nod their head and smile. They will not want to insult you. However, it is incredibly important to know that if you call an Afghan an Afghani, you are essentially calling them a currency. And I'm sure that none of us would want to be called a dollar bill, right? So it is the equivalent. So something really important, just very basic stuff important to know that that's how we would address an Afghan. My next point is when we welcome Afghans, right, we want to welcome them with a nice hot cup of green tea. We love some cardamom in there. We brew our tea in a thermos, right? We don't put a tea bag in a cup. We take a thermos, we put some hot water in there, we throw in a tea bag and some cardamom, we let it brew for a few minutes, and then we serve it, right? So this is a great way, a wonderful way to build rapport between yourself and the Afghan and our Afghan guests that are coming in. Pour them a cup of chai, right? It's called chai. Give them a cup, sit down with them, and then you're going to see the expression in their face change. Again, going back to that theme of being understood, right? And really making people feel comfortable, right? Showing them something that they're familiar with. So I want to talk a little bit about Afghanistan, again, back to kind of basic cultural competency. So Afghanistan is really the size of Texas, right? It's so small, yet so beautifully diverse, right? Afghanistan is a buffer state. A buffer state means that it is landlocked by major countries surrounding it, right? Which is part of the reason why so many different people want to get their hands on this country, because it's a great route to use. And it's got a lot of beautiful natural resources, right? We've got lithium, titanium, gems, emeralds, all that good stuff. So some of the countries that border us are Iran, Russia, China, Pakistan. And we do have, in this very small country, many different ethnicities. And we ask that you look at these ethnicities as diverse and beautiful, and a way of unifying people and not breaking them apart, right? So we've got Pashtuns, Tajik, Hazara, Uzbek, Turkmen, Nuristani, Baluch, and Pashai, right? So we never want to, right? It's a major faux pas to ask an Afghan their quote unquote ethnicity, right? It would be better and it would be preferable to ask the guests, our new guests, what language they prefer to speak in, right? Because we don't want to come off as divisive, right? And usually what ethnic groups do is they divide people, and they highlight differences rather than bridge together similarities, right? And language is a nice similarity. And we can definitely talk about that and understand that there are two languages in Afghanistan that are spoken, Pashto and Dari, And a lot of times people will interchange Dari and Farsi, right? So if you speak to an Afghan, they will tell you that they speak Farsi, but really they are speaking a dialect of Farsi that is used only in Afghanistan, that is referred to as Dari. Okay, it's a little bit confusing, but it's definitely something that you want to be aware of, because a lot of the time we ask for interpreters and we end up getting somebody who asks us, for a Farsi interpreter, and somebody Iranian will come in, and then there'll be some problems there with understanding the dialect. It's like English in America versus British English, right? Different accent and different words and idioms. That's a comparison that I thought of, right? We also have, as far as religions go in Afghanistan, that the majority of Afghanistan, right, used to be the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. So it's a majority Muslim country, right? And the two major sects of Islam are Shia and Sunni, right? The majority of people belong to the Sunni faith. And then we also have some Shia brothers and sisters as well, which is a wonderful thing. And again, should not be something to divide people. It's like a Catholic and a Protestant, right? Beautiful, all believing in the same God, and just different ways of going about it. Again, we don't want to necessarily ask what the two differences, what they belong to, but maybe what do you need when you're praying? If you want to serve this population and you would like to know how to better help them with their faith and, with their prayer services, maybe just ask, how would you like to prefer? What imam would you like to prefer? What masjid do you prefer, to make it more comfortable for them and for them to be able to practice their faith the way that they can and they should. We also have a 2% Jewish, Hindu, Sikh population. The 2% consists of all of those numbers. So it's important also to understand that. And the last thing that I'll touch on very quickly is that war definitely leads to PTSD. And PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, right? It's a normal reaction to a very abnormal event, right? So you got to remember, when you're dealing with these lovely guests, there's going to be feelings of mistrust. There's going to be paranoia. These things may develop, right, during the course of your interactions with our guests. So it's important to build a rapport. Take the relationship slowly, right? Try to understand the cultural nuances in the Afghan culture. Reach out to me, reach out to the Afghan American Foundation or any other Afghan American organizations out there that can help you and guide you. I'm not going to be able to cover the whole culture in 10 minutes, but definitely gender relations, right? Do's and don'ts. When you're greeting a male or a female, it's better just to put your hand to your chest so you don't have to awkwardly extend your hand, and maybe the person doesn't want to shake your hand, right? Because out of respect, that a female may not want to shake a male's hand. Better to just put your hand on your chest and slightly head nod, right? This is a beautiful way of greeting and a beautiful way of keeping it. I do believe that I'm out of time. Yes, but before I end, I just wanted to say at the end of the session today, we're definitely going to put up some Q&A and also some resources to better assist you. So that was a really quick crash course on some competencies that might make it easier for you all to interact. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fresta. That was really a wonderful overview of the culture. Many things I didn't know anything about, and I've never been there. But I like the way you refer to our guests, which I think is really critical for us to think about. Our next speaker is Zuhal Passoon from SIV, and she will talk about her personal experiences as she resettled in America. Zuhal?
Hello, my name is Zuhal Passoon, and I'm so glad that meet you all today. And thank you so much for giving the opportunity for me to talk. And I arrived to the United States in 2018 through the SIV program. And I don't want to be negative, but because today I was asked to talk about the challenges that I faced living in the United States. So I want to talk about the challenges. As you know, that living a country, your own country where you was born, where you grew up, where you study, where you made your career, and got married, made a home, but then finally you have no choice just to leave your country for living and for your safety. And so when we came to the United States, we had already had those emotional parts that I talk about, leaving family, leaving home, leaving job, and leaving everything and starting from zero. So we had already had those stress and emotional in our mind and life. So when we came to the United States, in the second week of our living here, the agency that was responsible for our resettlement, and they referred us to the welfare's office, and the welfare's office asked us to join the compulsory programs and to get the benefits from the government, like paying for the rent, housing, and Medicaid, and cash assistance, and like other benefits. And those they ask us that if you don't want to join these programs, you will be sanctioned and you will not receive any more benefits. So for us, as a new refugee, we needed more time to we needed more culture orientation programs, because adapting to a new society or adjusting to a new society, it requires more culture programs, or like we needed to make our resumes, because it is different here and in the United States, and it's different in Afghanistan. And we wanted to know more about work environment, about work policies. We wanted to know more about our kids' school. We wanted to know more about public transportation, which is completely different here in the United States and in Afghanistan. And I saw that some of you had traveled to Afghanistan, and you know about the differences and about the diversity. So these things were the had negative point that had to our stress and made us more stressful. And the second challenge that I personally faced and my husband faced, it was the gap of professional mentorship for Afghans, because most of the Afghans who came through SIV, and they are skilled Afghans, and so we wanted to have some mentors to guide us and introduce us the system system of United States, because I was a lawyer in my country, so I wanted to continue and get more educated here and become a positive part of the society here as well. And these two were the main challenges that we faced to our resettlement. And thank you.
Thank you, Suhal. It's sounds like you've adjusted fairly well. Your English is very, very good. Congratulations. Has your husband found a job, and have you found a job?
No, I don't. But my husband, yes, my husband got his master's degree from Massachusetts State University, and he has a job now. He had a job, but he was, because of coronavirus, they asked him to stay home. And now last week he had another interview. I think he might get a new job.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have some questions for you as we move along. The next speaker is SIV Ziv from the International Rescue Committee in New York and New Jersey. She will talk about how her resettlement agency helps refugees and their volunteers and what the needs are for both the people they work with and the volunteers that they work with. Avi?
Thanks so much, Spence, and really happy to be here with all of you this evening. I know I don't have a lot of time, so I want to just go quickly through a few points because I know many of you are probably eager for some questions.
We're not running behind time, so
Oh,
take what time you need. Yeah.
take what time I need.
We're doing well.
All right. I imagine many of you are familiar with resettlement agencies. I've seen some questions in the chat, but I might just take a quick moment for those that aren't very familiar, just to speak about who we are and what we do. So the International Rescue Committee, or IRC, is one of 9 agencies that contract with the US State Department to provide services for resettling refugees in the US. IRC has 26 offices across the US. That's everywhere from New York and New Jersey, where I am, to Salt Lake City, to Seattle, to Dallas, to Wichita. And then there are other agencies that contract with the US State Department as well. That includes Catholic Charities, HIAS, the US Committee of Refugees and the US Committee of Refugees and Immigrants, Church World Service, among others, LIRS included as well. As resettlement agencies, our role is to really help to welcome refugees when they arrive and try to help set them up for success in the US. So that's everything from picking up refugees when they arrive at the airport, helping them find a place to live and getting their new homes set up with, furniture and all the household items that they might need, helping them get Social Security cards and all of those benefits that Zuhal was mentioning, helping their kids get enrolled in school and acclimated to the new school environment that they're going to be in. Really all the elements that you need when you arrive in a new place and need to build your life in that new home. As IRC, and I know this is the case for our offices across the US and for other resettlement agencies, we don't also provide just this initial support, but really look to provide holistic services and a suite of services that are going to help refugees, not just when they first arrive, but throughout the whole process of resettlement. And often we are working with refugee families and individuals for up to 5 years. So that includes employment services, helping people find their first jobs or helping them with career development programming. We offer English classes and other adult education programming, youth programming as well, and then immigration legal services. One piece I really want to highlight is that, as resettlement agencies and the work that we do it really in close collaboration and in coordinations with the communities that we are in. For many of our organizations, we've been in these communities for years. Our office in New York has been around since the mid-70s for IRC, and we've been working in Northern New Jersey since the mid-80s. So we have really deep roots in these communities, and we think really that the key to successful resettlement and integration in this process overall is for us to be working with other community agencies, other community-based organizations, community groups, individuals, faith-based institutions, government agencies as well, because we absolutely cannot do this work alone. And it really takes all of these various entities and perspectives to be part of the process and to make it successful and complementary, and to really, work holistically with a family or with an individual. So I want to speak just a moment to maybe Afghan refugees that are arriving. So we've been working with Afghan refugees for years. Our New York and New Jersey offices have been resettling Afghan refugees for the past 20 years, and over that time have resettled nearly 800 Afghans, and that includes special immigrant visa holders. We have begun to start working as well with Afghan refugees that have been evacuated to the US. And that's not just IRC. I know there was a question in the chat about who's doing resettlement of Afghans that are arriving. That is all of the resettlement agencies across the US. That includes both those that are going to be arriving or have arrived as special immigrant visa holders and their families, as well as those that have been granted humanitarian parole that was mentioned by Freshta earlier today. Some of you might have seen that there are Afghans that are arriving, going to US government facilities across the US, and then are going to be traveling to resettlement agencies for the resettlement process after they leave those US government facilities. And the anticipated numbers for that right now are somewhere around 50,000 Afghans. I know there's a lot of energy and commitment from the Peace Corps community. I know we've worked in our offices really closely with returned Peace Corps volunteers in the past. We have staff that have worked in the Peace Corps all across our agency, both in our US programs and also in our international programs. And I know I can speak for our offices in New York and New Jersey and many of our offices across the US that we're really looking forward to working with Peace Corps volunteers and returned Peace Corps volunteers as within our offices to welcome Afghans into our community in the various ways that they're going to need support, not just in this moment, because I know this is really, in the media, everyone has a focus on it right now, but for the months that are to come as well. And so I'll maybe stop there and turn it back to Spence, and happy to also answer any questions down the line.
Okay, Avi, thank you very much. I think the point you made there at the end is critical. This is not something that's going to be over with in a short period of time. I know people here in Maryland who've been working with refugees from all over the world for years, and it's an ongoing, constant. It's something that needs to be kept up. So thank you very much. The final speaker is Annika Balk, who represents the Peace Corps Community for Refugees, who will talk about how returned Peace Corps volunteers can assist with resettlement agencies. Annika.
Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Annika Balk, and I'm the local liaison coordinator for PCC for Refugees. And I just want to talk a little bit about what we're doing, what we're trying to create, and especially how you all who want to get involved can get involved, actually. So to start out a little bit and to go off what was just mentioned, definitely there's so much stuff in the news right now with the Afghan arrivals, and with that there's been a lot of course on the local resettlement side, aside for demand of just as far as like needing volunteers or just resources or donations, money, anything like that. So to go with that is that demand that's happening. So you're seeing that, and as we know, with demand, there always comes like supply, right? And of course, with our Peace Corps volunteers, we are very eager as a community, as I'm sure y'all can attest to, volunteering and serving. And so definitely we have identified that there's a lot of you out there. So for instance, there's over 250,000 returned Peace Corps volunteers. And among those, there are a ton of volunteers that we've identified or like that would love to help out with the refugee community and with a greater extension to the Afghan allies that are arriving. So and as described earlier by Avi, it's a more urgent and greater and complex demand that we're seeing. So that's definitely where you're seeing this, of course, demand of needs and support, but also like that supply of like volunteers, and we're trying to like marry the two of them together, kind of like I guess like a matchmaking broker, if you have like that idea. So we are trying to do that through our local liaison program, which is a newer program. And what we're doing with this is we want to coordinate kind of on the ground. We definitely do stuff as PCC for Refugees, working, of course, in tandem and partnerships with for Friends of Afghanistan, as well as other affiliate groups. And of course, the larger like national resettlement groups such as LIRS and IRC. So we definitely do that on a central level, but of course, the real work takes place working and supporting refugees in the towns and cities and neighborhoods where they're being resettled. So we felt that RPCVs, this is the best way that, of course, we know how is to call upon our networks, utilizing our networks of contacts, and of course, our drive to serve each other and serve others. And especially if we have, say, a background in Daria Pasture, that's always really nice, right? So to establish this network around the country, and so these local liaisons, basically we would, what we are trying to do is establish these liaisons across 25 different cities. These are, of course, the cities that have been identified by the State Department where many of the Afghan allies are being resettled. And our local liaisons are like our RPCVs, and what they do is they coordinate on the ground, and mainly right now in the age of COVID, a lot of it's of course through online and through safety. But what we are asking our local liaisons to do is to identify what local refugee support organizations are in the area. So say if you're living in Denver, what are your local resettlement agencies there? Identify RPCVs in the group. So if you are in contact with RPCVs there locally, or if you're part of like an affiliate group there, to of course connect with them, see if there's interest of working with of course PCC for refugees along with the local resettlement agencies, and kind of connecting those RPCVs with the opportunities to serve refugees through the local resettlement agencies. So kind of like that middle, kind of that middle coordinator. That way, these groups such as IRC, those local resettlement agencies aren't getting as many, aren't getting as many individual volunteers. We're able to kind of streamline that. And the other part is to expand this like larger network. So to encourage these both RPCVs and of course there are other volunteers who are just interested in being a part of our network to expand that network. We meet periodically online and hopefully in person one day, of course, and share experiences, info, and then also creating a resource for the best way to serve, and then of course taking direction from folks who definitely have more experience, cultural experience, and learning from our Afghan allies who are coming to the best way to serve. So it can be through an individual, like an individual local liaison, or it can be one or two individuals. So for example, in Virginia, we had Richard McIntyre. He's been working diligently and been integral, kind of connecting Friends of Afghanistan members and other interested volunteers across Northern Virginia. And so that's been really exciting. And definitely just the interest is in pouring and we appreciate it. So to wrap it all up a little bit, just this long goodbye, as was mentioned by Avi, just there is a need in supply and demand now, and it is like obviously it's ramped up in the news and everything, but to remember like this is an ongoing need. It's not going to go away, and it's definitely takes a lot of just support and patience for not only volunteers, but obviously the refugees, and of course with the local resettlement agencies. So just to remember that, and that we are we're trying to work on this long goodbye. And so if you're interested in learning more about being a local liaison or just volunteering in general, we will have, we'll send this out in our contact afterwards, just some of the ways you can get involved and how you can sign up. And from there, we can connect you with the local resettlement agency, or at least the needs that are needed in your local area or on a national level. So.
Thank you, Annika. We've actually, you didn't use all of your time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off agenda. I'm going to remind people to put questions into the question and answer box, and we will get to those. We've got lots of time. I want to offer the other speakers an opportunity to maybe add to something they said, or to reflect on something that they heard another speaker talk about. I know when I've done these, I'll get through with my presentation and somebody else will speak and say, oh, I should have said that, or there's something I forgot. So let me kind of open it up and, to more of a conversation for, if you want to talk, put your hand up. There's a little thing down here that says raise hand. And I will call on you. And for maybe 10 minutes or so, we'll just have a conversation among ourselves. Who'd like to start out? Tony.
What I'd like to ask Annika, and I was going to say and ask Don, but Don's doesn't have the microphone. Something that I've been telling some of the Peace Corps volunteers who are involved in this is that we have a number of people through the liaison effort around the nation, a number of RPCVs and other interested parties. Can you give the audience here a rough estimate of the primary cities where we are not listing all of them and the number of volunteers we have in place right now?
Sure. So just to kind of go off some of so I mentioned the 25 cities by the State Department. I won't list all of them, but some of them, and especially that's where we're trying to get, we have some liaisons in some of them. So for instance, Houston, we have Ryan, pronounce his name now, Gazowski, that's it. So Ryan is there in Houston and also like established them with Austin as well. But some of those cities are, of course, Austin, Buffalo, Denver, Detroit, Jacksonville, Oakland, Pittsburgh, Sacramento. So they're all kind of around the US. And again, that's just a handful of the 25 cities that we've listed. And of course, there's resettlement in more cities, but these are the 25 cities respectfully for the Afghan allies that are being resettled. Those are the cities that are being pinpointed by the State Department to be resettled. As far as volunteers right now, we have an ongoing list of, I think it's at least the last time I checked, it was around 500 volunteers as far as interest. And we have in the last few weeks been slowly connecting those volunteers with our local liaisons. We've got about, I think, 20 local liaisons, and we're growing that extensively. So if you're really interested in being a local liaison for your area, you can definitely have more than one local liaison. I honestly, I like working in a team. So that's always nice to have like two people, say, like, I'm going to use the example of Denver again, but in Denver, it's a large city. So yeah, that's kind of our numbers so far, but we hope to grow that. And we want to be, of course, a force for good and not like a kind of a hindrance. So we want to coordinate that together as best we can.
Well, thank you. Fresta, you had your hand up. Unmute yourself.
Oh, sure, yes. So I just wanted to touch on one of the things that Zohal was mentioning earlier today. Really important to know and understand that, let me think, 2014, I believe it was a program director for an agency in northern New Jersey where we dealt with the Syrian refugee population when they were going through their crisis. And there was a lot of mistakes that were made that we do not want to repeat. I can tell you that it is 2021. And when I walk into any of these agencies, I still see these people struggling. And I think it's really important to kind of plant as many seeds as we can so that we can prevent a lot of those things from happening. One of the major things, and this will probably start or have to start at the base, this cannot wait until we get to the actual resettlement process. That'll be too late. On the base in their temporary home, our guests will definitely need what Zohal was saying, a cultural orientation. Something as basic to us as disciplining a child, child protective services, how we discipline children here is very different, and how we discipline children in Afghanistan, and what the standard and what the cultural norm is there is not the cultural norm here. So if we don't move quickly and get something, an orientation like that done, that will definitely cause some really big problems going down the line. So this is definitely an initiative that we are pushing for and trying to get from Jump Street on the base so that we don't wait until more issues arise. Yes, there are a lot of issues, but we also understand that there are thousands of people in one place, and this all happened in a very short amount of time. So streamlining the efforts and organizing and trying to get the right people to do the right things has really been the biggest challenge right now. I just wanted to add that in, and that I also agree that if we can get those cultural orientation programs started on the base now, by the time folks are resettled and in their homes, they can just smoothly start, getting on buses and getting to where they need to go, knowing exactly how to parent here, et cetera.
Tony.
I just got a question transferred from Dan from the Q&A area about programs that are going on in the Western New York region. And the Western New York RPCVs, Buffalo RPCVs, just had an in-person showing of a towering task, and we used it as a third goal introduction and a way to feature the Buffalo United for Afghan Evacuees program. And this is all of our volunteer agencies working together on a common fundraiser and working to promote interaction with the community. And just for reference, the easy access is wnyrac.org, and you can get a good look at what they're trying to do with this program. And so this is the volunteer agencies working with the Western New York Peace Corps group, and we could certainly interact with other various size groups. I mean, as big as New York and